Natalia again. Nice to see you all. So, if you're wondering where I am right now, I'm actually in my theology campus. This is the Trinity Anglican campus that I go to because I take some subjects here. I study some units. So, I just finished one of my classes today. And today's topic won't be dealing much with. I figured that I'll actually touch upon my studies a bit later because I want to compile as much information as I can. But in the meantime, I will talk a bit more about myself. And the topic for today will be concerning whether or not I classify myself as a Christian apologist in disguise of a philosopher or a Buddhist. Again, this might sound a bit amusing for you all because some of you know me as Buddhist, but I'm sure from some of my posts in Instagram, if you follow me from Instagram, you might probably wonder if I'm actually a Christian instead. And I've actually wondered this to myself as well because I never actually wanted to or thought about categorizing myself in a certain category, because I have always been rather multi-identity, I have this sort of multi-religious mindset in myself. I'm still spiritual, but I am sort of stuck in this correlation between Christian and Buddhist mindsets. So I start off by saying that yes, I consider myself a bit of a Christian apologist, but not to a very large degree, because a lot of what I have learned about human nature and about the ongoings of things within the Bible actually are ingrained more, and I subscribe more to the Buddhist outlook on human nature. But in terms of a sort of like the attitudes of that is based on an individual thing, like how people actually view their participation within society. I look at that in a Buddhist perspective, like, how can I actually do my best for humanity? Like, where does questions about where does my salvation actually come from? But as a whole, I think that I have more of a Christian outlook in a collective form. Like, for example, how people would achieve salvation in a collective eschatological, if you'd like to say, sense. Because it's such a huge topic for me, because in the modern West especially, the idea of a modern sort of democratic society is largely ingrained within Christian values. And Christian values talks a lot about diversity, about the inclusion of people of all different cultures, and regardless of your religion, of your culture, you're basically just emulating the persona of Christ. So to put it simply, people who were and are segregated into different cultures and religions originally belong to God, but they're exiled, so to speak, into these separate cultures. But going back to the question, first of all, my outlook on Christianity lies not only within the general conception of salvation, where I believe that salvation doesn't just come by benefiting your individual self, but also by participating with your surroundings and helping others, benefiting them. And in that way, that is also sort of overlapping with some Buddhist values, where everybody actually earns what I have given them. They benefit from what I have provided to them, in a sense, and that actually would lead to something even that sort of has a bigger step within salvation, rather than just doing things for your own benefit. But in a Buddhist sense, salvation. So, salvation in a Buddhist sense, I think, is I still can't really quite grasp it because it's rather materialistic. The view that one have to, do as much good works as you can, and then actually it for retribution for your next life or your present life, but later on. So you're accumulating as much good karma as you can, which could determine your outcome later or in the present life, if you believe in if you believe in that concept where you have present, past, future lives. I just think that sort of idea of salvation by self-retribution is a bit, it's just a little static in a way, even though it works, but it's very difficult to apply. So, which is why I am an apologist, as to say that in the Christian understanding, God provides the structure in life, in ordering the hierarchy of our lives and our sort of, we humans determine the ethics, but God provides the commandments provide the ethics, but humans rule out with their reason and try to actually seek a balance if those ethics that God have provided, which is the commandments, can work within the natural law on earth. Okay, so that's more on like the earthly sense. But on a more spiritual level, there is this really huge concept of martyrdom and self-crucifixion, so to speak, that I really can resonate with Christianity, although at the same time I'm troubled with it. So I'm going to reiterate that again. So the concept of crucifying or sacrificing yourself for virtue of others or for the virtue of yourself is a very huge theme and very impactful within Christianity. It's not the same. It's not a Buddhist doctrine. Definitely not. And it's a concept that I can't really relate at the same time, which is why I'm troubled with it. I'm troubled with it because on an economic and sort of on a more personal sense, I haven't exactly have enough of a suffering, enough suffering or enough humbleness to really resonate with that idea of self-sacrifice, self-crucifixion, where it doesn't have to be anything grand like, killing myself or sort of having myself burnt just for, for others to take pity on me. It's not something like that. Of course, this is not Middle Ages, but it's more about me actually helping other people. And I never really seek that sort of attitude, I never really, I was brought up to do good things and my parents used to take me a lot to the Buddhist temples, but I just didn't have that inclination within me or the drive that tells me that I want to help others because there are people out there suffering for my sake. I have my parents, yeah, so my idea of suffering only applies within the private sort of family or friend basis. It doesn't really apply to the whole collective. So that's where I'm troubled. But and how I'm starting to, I don't actually look at that as a very bad thing, because I'm sure I'm not the only person who's like this. There are probably people out there who are also like me, and they can resonate with my struggle with self-sacrifice. Like even in the stories within the Bible, like Jesus, think about it, in his ministry he would help people who are lame, who are disabled, who are blind, who can't walk. Those are people who belong to the lower class, people who typically unable to gain benefits because the government at the time was tyrannical in Rome. Sorry, I mean in Jerusalem, because the Roman legionaries were there at the time. So speaking from a sort of middle class perspective, it's a bit challenging, yes. And then, well, that is basically how I'd classify myself as a Christian apologist. But because I've also, after reading church history, after studying theology, looking into the life of the martyrs, there are plenty of martyrs really in church history, especially the Reformation, the reformers like Johannes Hus, who got burnt at stake for his views, and that was sort of seen as virtuous. But in Buddhism, such a concept is foreign because the Buddhist idea of virtue is more individualistic. It's not really so much about sacrificing yourself so that others actually look upon you, and in fact that's actually abhorred within the Buddhist concept. I mean the Buddhist religion. So yes, that's all that I have to say. Let me know what you think. Peace out.